Hi, everyone. We are here today talking about investing. This is part of a series about financial readiness and being financially smart when you're getting ready to transition, whether it's separation or retirement out of active duty military service and launching your family and yourself into the civilian world. I'm Anna Larson, excited to be here with you today. And I have with me today Sarah Roeder from APMA. Sarah, do you want to do a really quick introduction? Just tell everyone who you are and why you're so excited to be here. And since
I'm very excited to be here today. Thank you, Anna, so much. As Anna said, I'm Sarah Roeder. I'm the Director of Partnership and Member Engagement here at AFMA. I am a military spouse, and I'm a certified financial educator instructor. And I like to educate people about their finances and making sure that they understand it and it's not too scary. And how do we get on that right footing for you and your family? And I'm really excited about talking about investing today.
if you want to learn from the best, you want to learn from someone that loves this conversation, and that is absolutely Sarah. So thank you for being here with us. We always like to start these conversations with a little disclosure disclaimer. Sarah, run us through what this means.
Yeah, so this is just basically saying, again, we are here to talk and to educate. Everything we're going to talk about today is not to be taken as financial or legal advice. We leave that to the lawyers and the CPAs. So we are talking about educating within this space.
And I am neither a lawyer or CPA, so there you go. Let's jump right into the conversation. Greg, move to the next slide because I think this is really what we're talking about is what goes into a financial plan and which part of this are we talking about today?
If you joined Anna and I all before, you know that I am a really big proponent of having a good foundation. You have to have a foundational start in order to get to where you want to be. And so we want to talk about investing today. Then we have to have a good financial plan. In our other conversation, we talked about how am I going to have a good financial plan if I don't have a good budget? So it's all connected together. So today we're talking about investing, and that means that we have to understand our financial plan. Here's a great snapshot of what that looks like. You've got to know the money that's coming in, the money that's going out, what is your extra money, and how is that going to help you for the future?
And if you don't have those answers, there's no time better than the present to start at the beginning of this series and watch your way through because we'll take you step by step on all the different little pieces and provide some of the tools that are really going to help you navigate through that process. So let's jump into investing and let's talk a little bit about the principles of investing. This sounds like such a very academic slide.
Don't be too scared by it. It's just a good foundation. So as you're going through a life event, anytime there's a life event, which we say is maybe a marriage, a death, a divorce, a birth of a child, or a career change. And leaving the military is a really big life event, not only for the service member, but for the military spouse as well. And so we're talking about investing, which means we're going through this life event. We want to make sure that our investing path forward is going to get us where we want to go. And you have to understand foundationally, what's the basis of why I would invest? What's it made up of? And it's kind of simple. 4 things, right? It's saying I want to be a part of the economy as it grows. I can do that based off of the time that I have. So how much time you have is a big factor into how you invest or save your fund. I want to make sure that I am diversified, meaning that the time that I have to invest this money is in the right pockets to do so. And then lastly, people discredit sometimes, but behavior really matters. There are people that are big risk takers and they go to bed every night and they feel really great. And there are people who that would keep them up at night. And so you have to figure out within your behavior, you and your spouse, what makes sense when it comes to your risk. How are you going to sleep well at night, but also know that you're making some wise choices with your money?
So whether you are the military spouse or whether you are the service member, you need to have those conversations, especially about risk. Because where one might feel perfectly comfortable taking $10,000 and putting it in somewhere, that just might be anxiety inducing for someone.
Yeah.
And you have to talk through that process Okay, let's talk about traditional investments.
If you're going through this military transition and you're thinking maybe you've never invested before, or maybe you've only done a little bit, there's always time to start. It's today, right? It's today. You just start now and you just start the best that you can. And so it's also important as you are transitioning from service that you understand now, what does that look like when you leave service? So when we talk about an employer 401k, that's basically a TSP that a service member currently has been putting funds into if they have been. It's saying that my employer is giving me this opportunity to save some money, and so I'm going to do that. Now, when you leave the service, you no longer can contribute money to that TSP, and we'll talk through that in a minute. But it's important to understand that if you get another job and you have a second career, which a lot of people who are leaving service, retiring, or separating do, that you now have the opportunity with a new employer to create a 401k. And so this is what that looks like from a tax implication standpoint. You also have the ability to create an IRA, which says I can now have another vessel to save money. So I can do that on my own, and you can open an IRA through Vanguard or Charles Schwab or whomever. And you can say, I can now have another vessel to save some money into, just an additional way of saving. And so it's important to understand the difference in these two. Important to understand the difference when we talk about a Roth versus traditional, which we can see here. It's based on the taxes. And it's important to understand that you need a plan for this and how you're going to save in these two different ways.
And if you're a military spouse, it's likely you have one or both of these. And we'll talk about spousal IRAs as well in just a little. But if you've had a work history, no matter how spotty it is, it's likely you have 401k contributions that you've built up over the years that you have worked. And you might be wondering, what do I do with these funds and where do I put them? Before we get into all of that, let's talk really quickly about the TSP, because that's always a really big question.
It really is. It's one of the biggest questions we get with our transitioning service members. And it's really good as a military spouse to know this information too, to be prepared for it, because a lot of times service members do not realize that what they have contributed to their TSP, it in essence freezes. So you no longer can make contributions to it, which means you have to do a couple of things. You either have to roll it over into a different type of plan. You have to actively manage it yourself, meaning you have to go into the TSP and see, where are my asset allocations? What funds am I in? Does that meet my risk and time and diversification? You can see we've listed here the various funds. TSP is great. They have some really great funds. It is a great investment vehicle, but you have to know where your money is. It is painstaking when we see service members who have contributed to a TSP for maybe years, and they say, yeah, I did that, and it's all in the G fund. And you're going, oh my goodness, why would we do that? And it's just, we didn't know, and nobody educated us. And you had so many other opportunities. So it's a great fund, but the most important thing is you have to know that you can't contribute to it anymore. So either you've got to manage it, or you've got to find somebody to manage it, or you have to roll it over into something, but it freezes.
The three things at the top right there on this slide that say low fee index fund options, rollover IRA or 401k into TSP or vice versa, and then flexible withdrawal options. You want to know the answers to those questions for yourself.
Yes, you absolutely do. And I just, as a caveat, anytime anyone is thinking of withdrawing money from any type of investment vehicle, whether it's a 401k, it's a TSP, it's a IRA, please ask somebody before you do that. Just do yourself a favor and always ask.
Know what the risk is going to be when that happens. Is definitely a good one. We want to continue talking just for a minute so that our military spouse community better understands what the TSP and the contribution matching, and this is when you can still contribute to your TSP. If you're still in active duty service, this is really important for you to know about right now.
Yeah.
And also, I love this return, compound annual return. Look at that chart just going up, up, people.
So TSP has great funds. It's important, as Anna said, that if you're still on active duty, which if you are thinking about transitioning from service 2 years ahead of time is the time to do that. So hopefully you've got 2 years on active duty to be thinking about these things. But yes, the fund, they're great funds. When you just got to figure out what's the right thing for you and for your family to put that money into, right? To allocate the money that you're contributing. And that also goes for when you have a civilian 401k or IRA, you also have to do this. You have to understand that, or you have to ask somebody for some guidance about how do I want to do that?
Yeah.
And then you have to think about those matching contributions. That's a really big one that sometimes we don't realize, but matching contributions, everyone in the civilian sector has been doing matching contributions for their employees forever. The military was really late to adopt this, and that's now part of the blended retirement system. And so it's important to understand that now, while it might not actually be applicable to you, it will be applicable when you have a civilian job and they say, yeah, we've been doing this for 50 years. And so what matching contributions are is saying, basically, if you put in, and for TSP, for example, they will match dollar for dollar on 3% you put in. And then they will say, we'll give you 50 cents per dollar on the other 2%. So you can have a total matching contribution of up to 5%. And when you look at what that means actually in your paycheck, it's free money is what it is. It's investing free money. So you should be investing anyway. You should be investing 10%. That's the standard. And so why wouldn't you want to get free money on top of that? I know I do.
I know, right? We actually have an example here for an E2, what they would ring if they were doing that that matching system. So,
yeah.
And so this is right here.
This is E2. And we purposely did this at an E2 level to say, this is what a base pay of an E2 is. This is what the matching contribution is. So bare minimum 5%. They're saying I'm going to save 5% of my money. And they're basically going to put in about $90. And look, they're going to get $82 in free money. This is their free money. They should be investing anyway, and they're going to get $82 in free money. Now,
your investment.
Yeah, it actually is. And so you can do this, right, based off of whatever your base pay is. If it's 2,000, 1,000, it's 10,000. I don't know. You can do it on anything, and you're getting free money. So it's important to understand that, especially when you get to the civilian sector and you have a job in the civilian world, this is one of the biggest questions that comes up when we talk about investing is they go, do I do this matching contribution or what is that? And the answer is yes.
The answer is yes, you want to do that.
The answer is yes.
The answer is yes. The answer is yes, you want to put money towards your investment. And the answer is yes, you also want to do matching contributions. Both of those are
yeses.
Okay, so let's talk about the reality about military spouses and employment and investing and all of that and what that looks like. We have been traditionally sitting at above 20% unemployment rate. And if you start to look at numbers for underemployment, it shoots up into the 70 percentile range, where military spouses are really struggling with creating a good foundation of investment for themselves for retirement. And I'm just going to say, you never know what's going to happen. You never know. You really do have to, as a military spouse, you need to be thinking about, what am I doing for myself that is for me specifically? You cannot count on your service members' TSP or your service members' income or any of those kinds of things. So, Sarah, can you tell us a little bit more about like the spousal IRA? I have a little slide I'll throw up to kind of help everybody.
Spousal IRA is really important because, again, as military spouses, we tend to think of everyone but ourselves. We tend to be running the household and the person is on deployment after deployment or in training ops or whatever it looks like. And sometimes we don't think about ourselves and we don't think about that in a financial aspect. And underemployment and unemployment is huge in the military spouse community. If you are a military spouse and you are not actively working outside of the home, and your service member obviously is in the military or is working, then you can create a spousal IRA. So you can go to a Vanguard, a Schwab, or wherever you want to go to, and you can open an IRA and you can set aside money for just yourself in your name. And what this is doing is, if you look at it from a financial planning standpoint, this is now just one more vessel of investing for you and your family. So at the end, when you and your spouse, you're ready to retire, it's just one more investment opportunity that you've been saving into. But what it also is doing as a military spouse, as Anna said, is you never know what's going to happen, right? You never know. Death happens, divorce happens. And so this gives a bit of safety net for just the military spouse to say, I have something of my own as well. And so it's really important to think about how you do that and you make that work within your budget, because at the end, it's just another way to save money. And why wouldn't we want to do that?
Says the person who loves talking about finances, right? So let's look at that history of performance. What is this showing us, Sarah?
So that's showing again when we look at or we start thinking about where should I put my money? How do I understand that better? You want to look at the history of a performance of things. So this is mimicked after the TSP and saying these are the various funds within TSP and this is how they perform. So when you are going to look at, hey, I want to manage this maybe on my own, right? Or I now have another job and I have the opportunity to invest in a 401k, it's going to be similar, right? You're going to have kind of small stocks, large stocks, and all these various things making this up. And so it's important to understand that you just need a basic, right, understanding of this. And if you don't, then it's really important to ask somebody. Just ask somebody to say, based off of my time that I have till I need to start withdrawing this money, and based off of my risk tolerance, what are things that make sense for me to invest in? And that's a great question to ask. And it's very individual. And it goes into understanding too diversification. We find a lot of times that service members, and especially military spouses, will get intimidated because there's lots of different words and different things that you're not used to hearing about. And it's really just okay to ask the question and just have a basic knowledge. So diversification is saying that I want to make sure that I'm not too far into one way or the other way, so that when I need to take this money out, it's going to be right where I want it to be, that I'm not at too much of a risk. And your diversification changes as your time changes. So somebody who's 20 years old and had a lifetime of earning can be super risky, right? Because they can ride that wave up and down. And then as you get older, you pull back on that because maybe it's a good year. Okay, great. Maybe the next year's a bad year, and that's when you're taking all your money out. And that's where talking this through and just understanding that you have to find a middle ground there. There's people that can help you do that.
Yeah. Just to sum up what we were talking about, it's knowing what those funds are that are available to you. It's going to depend on where that investment is being held, right? The company that is supporting you in the investing process. Sarah said, no matter who it is, just start asking the questions. It's their job to help you understand what they are doing with your money.
Yeah.
Yes. That is their job. So don't be afraid to say, I don't like what I'm seeing here. Tell me more about it. This is going to require you, military spouses, to become part of your finances. Like, you have to be involved in it. It's not a daily thing. We are not day traders. That's not what we're talking about here. But just keeping an eye on where things are going. And you are going to see dips and curves. And if I threw that like trend thing up again, you can see in the 20s, it's like everything's going negative and then it starts shooting. But over the long term, you see this growth. Don't get freaked out by the losses on a day-to-day basis, but you do want to, at a minimum, I don't know, every year, 6 months, I don't even know what the suggested time frame is to really say, all right, what kind of growth did we see? Do we need to change things up? Is my investment firm doing a good job with the money that we've given them?
And the end of the year is a great time to do that, because everybody is looking towards preparing their taxes. So it's a great time to kind of review and capture that. as well as anytime you have a life event. I always say that because it is really important that when you're going through some sort of life event that you take into account, how is this going to affect my finances and how is it going to affect my end goal? Where do I want to be at the end of all of this?
That's a really good point. Having a baby, moving, losing someone, all of those are major life, getting married, getting divorced,
Yeah.
all of those things that can happen to you. You have to stop and take stock again of where are you at in all of those areas. Before we close out today, we always love to touch on what about our kids? And kiddos, they're little ones that are getting older and growing, and you may have kids in high school, nearing college, or you might have littles, or you might have already in college kids. But want to, before we close out today, talk really quickly about 529 savings plans.
This is another investment vessel. So we've been talking all kind of about investing. This is that an investment vessel. It is a 529 plan. Various states have 529 plans, various brokerage firms have them. And so what it allows you to do is to contribute funds and it grows tax deferred, which is awesome for your children to be able to use when they graduate from school, from like high school, and they want to go on to higher education. And so it's something to look into as part of your financial planning if this is something that you want to be able to afford for your children. And then 529 plans are really common. People talk about them a lot. There are two other options that are out there too. We're not going to get into those, but I'm just going to mention them. They're called UDMA and UTMA. They're just different ways to be able to invest funds for your child where they then can use it for schooling. And so again, we just want to educate and say, hey, there's three things out there that you can talk about. There's a 529, there's an UDMA, there's an UTMA. So as you're talking to people or educating yourself, you're making sure that you're asking the right question for what makes sense for you and your family.
And where you're at in your life stages. And it might change. Knowing what your options are for if you do need to remove money from something is another good question to ask. So,
Very much so.
okay. So we just completed Investments 101. So if you were thinking like, what am I supposed to do with this TSP? What am I supposed to do with our Roth IRA or our traditional IRA? Where are we supposed to go next? As always, we talk about talking with a financial planner. AFMA offers that service through their wealth management division.
Yeah, our wealth management and trust. We are a fiduciary organization, which is important because it says we're held to a higher standard. We have to report legally and show that we are doing what's in the best interest for our clients. So that's very important. And these are all questions that AFMA helps our service members guide and navigate through. So if you have any of those questions, please feel free to reach out. Our wealth management and trust or our member benefits team is happy to help. And these are some ways that you can connect. You can connect directly with me on LinkedIn. As always, we have a great financial readiness page on AFMA where you can see a lot of this information for where you are in your military career or where you're going to be soon. If you're transitioning out of the service, some really great resources here to check out.
Highly recommend connecting with Sarah. Sarah does regular live streams about financial information that you need to be knowing as an active duty and transitioning and veteran service member. So highly recommend following Sarah on LinkedIn and then checking out that financial readiness page. It's pretty darn awesome. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for enjoying us. Did you enjoy us today, everyone? I hope so. Me too. What I meant to say is thank you so much for joining us today. Let me slow down that word just a tiny little. We look forward to seeing you at the next in our series where we're going to be talking about what about SBPs and life insurance? Oh, the question everyone wants to know about. So jump into that one next and we will see you again soon. Thank you.